How does a 19-year-old deserter orchestrate the execution of 150 people in 8 days? With one officer's coat. 150 lives in 8 days. That count translates to nearly 19 executions every 24 hours, directed by one individual acting outside the established chain of command. It was April 1945, and the British Army was advancing rapidly into northwestern Germany, fracturing the defensive front lines. Willi Herold navigated this collapsing territory, leaving his infantry unit behind to wander the chaotic roads alone. The military hierarchy was dissolving, creating a vacuum where a piece of fabric replaced legitimate orders from high command. He discovered the abandoned luggage along a rural dirt road. Herold lifted the Luftwaffe captain's coat from the debris, brushing the dust off its tailored shoulders. He slid his arms into the sleeves, feeling the heavy weight of the thick officer's fabric settling against his frame. He aligned the edges and fastened the buttons one by one, securing the insignia that commanded unquestioning obedience. A 19-year-old infantryman could never command a firing squad without written authorization under normal circumstances. But the infrastructure was shattered, leaving desperate soldiers eager to follow anyone wearing the right cloth. The deception initiated a massacre that lasted exactly 8 days. Why did the regime reject 10-year-old Willi Herold in 1936? Because he attempted to forge his own paramilitary group. This boy in the stolen coat took shape 10 years earlier. January 1933, Nazis took power. They took schools. They took youth. By 1935, 10-year-old Willi wore a brown shirt. He marched in strict formation. He sang nationalist anthems loudly. The state processed children efficiently. They gave them a uniform. They gave them an enemy. By 1936, a law made membership mandatory. Expulsion became a rare social anomaly. Children obeyed blindly. They marched together. The Hitler Youth demanded submission. It crushed independent thought. But Herold craved personal control. He skipped service. He lasted 1 year. The regime expelled him. Not for resistance. He displayed sheer arrogance. He rejected the rigid structure. He refused their orders. Instead of serving their hierarchy, Willi Herold withdrew from the organization and established his own independent, unofficial group of loyal boys. His future desire to command loyal followers originated before the 1930s, taking root in the deep destitution of the Weimar Republic. September 11, 1925. Willi Paul Herold was born into a broken country in the quiet Saxon town of Lunzenau. The economy remained in ruins 2 years after the exchange rate hit 4 trillion marks to a single dollar. Hyperinflation had already wiped out the life savings of entire generations, leaving working-class families with nothing. Citizens possessed no financial safety net and envisioned zero prospects for their growing children. Exhausted men silently shuffled forward along the damp cobblestones of Lunzenau, forming massive queues for a simple bowl of rationed soup. Where could a teenager flee from the internal control of the Gestapo? He attempted to emigrate to the United States. Realizing that the destitution of Lunzenau offered zero prospects, the boy tried to cross the borders of the Reich. He failed immediately. During wartime, leaving Germany for America remained a physical impossibility. Closed frontiers and armed military checkpoints guaranteed that any teenage escape plan would collapse on the first day. The Gestapo maintained constant surveillance over every railway station and rural road across the country. They tracked the runaway down. Plainclothes officers arrested him. Agents transported the boy straight back to Lunzenau. By 1943, he was exactly 17 years old. He went right back to cleaning soot out of narrow flues. He resumed his daily routine as a chimney sweep apprentice. The Wehrmacht drafted him. How to command officers in March 1945. Through forgotten fabric. The summer 1943 draft led him here. He walked between Gronau and Bad Bentheim. He spotted an abandoned vehicle, a heavily damaged Wehrmacht staff car. It rested deep in the roadside mud. No driver remained nearby. He checked the empty cabin carefully. A Luftwaffe captain tunic waited inside. Medals covered the chest. Silver insignia clearly marked the rank. Retreating units abandoned equipment en masse. This road sits just kilometers from the Dutch border. Tanks sat empty. March 1945 changed the landscape. Germany disintegrated rapidly. American forces already crossed the Rhine River. The Eastern Front collapsed without any resistance. Chaos consumed the entire Arnhem retreat. His unit vanished. Orders ceased. Corridors narrowed every single day. Visual signs dictated military authority. The state verified nothing anymore. Communications failed across the entire region. Real commanding officers lay dead. Status required 0 paper documents now. Fabric replaced the actual military rank. He stripped off his private gear and dressed himself in the captain uniform right there on the rural road. 4,345 kilometers of concrete and steel. The confidence to wear a stolen captain's uniform had a real foundation. It was forged on the bunkers of the Atlantic Wall. In the summer of 1943, Herold joined the Reich Labor Service. He worked on coastal fortifications in occupied France. The compulsory program demanded hard physical labor. It hardened him. The Wehrmacht drafted the young man just 3 weeks after his 18th birthday. Recruiters noticed his exceptional physical endurance. They selected him for specialized airborne units. He completed basic infantry conditioning and a 16-day parachute course. He jumped from transport aircraft. He learned the mechanics of operating behind enemy lines. This specific training taught him how to walk with authority, helping him bypass standard military checks months later. He became a dangerous asset. The command deployed him directly to Italy. He entered the combat zone of the Battle of Monte Cassino. Allied forces bombed the historic hilltop monastery into concrete rubble. German defenders held the ruins for months. The fighting claimed the lives of tens of thousands of soldiers. This high casualty rate created an ideal environment for personal documents to simply vanish. Surviving those trenches required cold calculation. Herold fought in those ruins. He later claimed he received military medals for this deployment. Archive files contain 0 records of his decorations for bravery. Armed with parachute training and captain's epaulets, he built his own company. Where did a deserter get personal artillery? From a naval vessel. A 20mm Flak 38 changed everything. Men stripped it from a ship. They mounted it on a field kitchen. Heavy metal clanked against steel frames. Soldiers searched for authority. He provided it. Heinz Hofmeister joined him. Reinhard Freitag followed. 12 men formed the permanent corps. 12 soldiers mirrored a standard Wehrmacht infantry squad. This exact number lulled patrol vigilance. It looked official. Around this center, up to 60 others orbited. They commandeered trucks. They gathered weapons. They stockpiled ammunition. They reached Oaktrup near the Dutch border. A military checkpoint blocked the road. A senior officer halted the transport. The deserter stepped out. No hesitation. Direct eye contact. Forged papers stayed hidden. He claimed a classified mission. He invoked Adolf Hitler directly. The senior officer weighed these words while standing before a fully armed squad operating outside any military control. The officer lifted the barrier. Why did local leader Gerhard Buschel consult the regional Gestapo headquarters? He needed to legalize impromptu firing squads. On April 11, 1945, the impostors' armed convoy rolled unchallenged through the final military checkpoints and halted directly before the gates of Aschendorfer Moor. The compound held nearly 3,000 prisoners inside a perimeter built for exactly 1,000. Barracks, originally constructed in 1933 near the Dutch border for political dissidents, were now filled with Wehrmacht deserters. Men slept shoulder to shoulder on bare wooden planks, dying from disease before the firing squads even arrived. Stepping out of his vehicle, the young captain verbally declared he possessed unlimited operational powers granted directly by the Führer. He carried no papers. The camp officials, conditioned by 12 years of strict hierarchy, accepted his spoken word without demanding physical proof. During the very first assembly, the self-appointed commander walked down the silent ranks of inmates. He arbitrarily pointed his finger at random faces standing in the formation. Guards pulled the selected men from the line. Firing squads shot them on the spot. The complete randomness of the selection removed any logical link between an inmate's behavior and their basic survival. Camp clerks simply absorbed the sudden executions into their daily ledgers without asking questions. Seeking a veneer of official sanction for the unrecorded casualties, Gerhard Buschel placed a formal inquiry with the secret police. The Gestapo registered the report, stamped the paperwork, and raised no objections against the executions. Why did British investigators bring 50 prisoners to Aschendorfer Moor II on the 1st of February 1946? To exhume 195 executed men. The process demanded hours of heavy labor. Prisoners struck the ground with steel shovels. The winter soil was frozen solid. A strong stench of cold peat and decay filled the trench. They pulled the stiff remains out by hand. 195 bodies. That count equals the entire population of a small farming village. Wiped out by the command of a single 19-year-old. In August 1946, a military court opened in Oldenburg. The city lay inside the British occupation zone. Colonel Herbert Bourne convened the tribunal. Investigators documented 111 direct, proven murders. The proceedings presented a sharp contrast. 195 excavated corpses stood against the defendant's blank answer. "I cannot say why I actually shot them." He showed no grief. He claimed no complex motives. On August 29th, the judge handed down the death sentence to 6 defendants. 97 men with shovels went out to dig a trench before dawn. All these 195 individuals ended up in a mass grave during a single week in April 1945. The guards executed 97 people in a single morning on April 12th. Soldiers lined the condemned along the freshly excavated dirt walls. They lowered the barrel of an anti-aircraft gun directly to human height. The heavy thud of high-caliber shells tore through targets at point-blank range. Rifles and hand grenades finished the remaining survivors inside the deep pit. Between 150 and 172 people died under direct orders from Herold. He turned the detention facility into a personal execution ground while the national government collapsed. The executions halted only when external forces destroyed the compound from the sky. Heavy British air raids hit the camp on April 18th and 19th. The bombardment killed approximately 50 individuals and shattered the main infrastructure. Surviving inmates immediately scattered across the burning countryside. Herold gathered a loyal unit and moved through the surrounding rural districts. They searched for anyone displaying the slightest indication of surrender to the advancing Allied troops. The unit hanged a civilian farmer for displaying a white flag in his window. How did the Wehrmacht punish an officer for mass executions? Admiral Kurt Bayer just let him go. The farmer swung in the noose. Military police apprehended Herold. April 30th, 1945. Hitler shot himself. Police cornered Herold 50 kilometers from the Dutch border. This specific distance from the border indicated a clear, deliberate attempt to flee the country before the final capitulation. May 3rd. The trial began. Chief Judge Horst Franke intervened. Bayer signed the release. The collapsing Reich protected its killer. He deserted. Herold fled to Wilhelmshaven. He discarded the uniform. He became a chimney sweep. He vanished. May 23rd. British sailors arrested him. He stole bread. The mass murderer fell for basic rations. British troops sent the detained chimney sweep to the civilian camp Esterwagen. 21-year-old Willi Herold stood before the mechanism of the guillotine. From the holding cells of the Esterwagen camp, his final transfer ended securely inside the execution block of Wolfenbüttel prison. The formal record marked the date precisely as November 14, 1946. Guards guided the condemned man toward the heavy wooden apparatus. Executioners strapped the prisoner face down onto the horizontal bench, locking his neck tightly beneath the wooden yoke. He was 21 years old, the typical age of a second-year university student. Yet investigators had documented an extensive trail of mass graves under his direct command. The executioner released the primary lever without any hesitation. A loud metallic clank of the falling steel blade echoed sharply through the concrete chamber, severing the cervical spine instantly. The presiding officials finalized the paperwork and formally confirmed the death of the Luftwaffe deserter. Forensic teams continued to process the exhumation reports from the Emsland region, matching the recovered bodies to the specific execution orders he had authorized. The final documented count of his victims stood at exactly 195.